Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started with the October Assessment Coordinators meeting. Hopefully everyone had a chance to take a look at the agenda, but we'll review that in just a few minutes. If you ever have any questions, you're unsure of what's going on, or if you have concerns, please don't hesitate to text or call or email Sarah Wallner or myself, and we'll help take care of you. So let's get going with the presentation. This is going to be an exact, as close as I can get it, an exact copy of what we did on October 17th. So last week, about a week ago, just so you're aware of that. The purpose of these meetings is twofold, really. We always work better when we work together. So if ideas come up or questions come up, please don't hesitate to ask, because you are not the only one who has that question. You've got ideas how it works really well for you. Others would appreciate hearing that. So for the purpose, one of the purposes of this meeting is to get information, but it's also to support each other and to work on questions together. The agenda for today is we will talk about some feedback on the map testing that has just closed last week. I'll give you an update as to when things are going to be available for the buildings. I know that everyone is anxious to have their map data back. So we'll talk about that. But I also need your feedback, and it might be tricky in this particular kind of setting, but know that we appreciate hearing from you in different forms as well. We'll talk about PALs. One of the important things are the reports that are going to be available and how you need to interact with that a little bit. Briefly, COGAT, as well as the Apple assessments. Finally, the big point of discussion today is going to be access, and we'll spend the majority of our time there. As always, if you have questions, please let me know. So for MAP this year, the window was closed last Friday, and the data is back in-house. It's being cleaned up right now and getting made ready to go into IC, which follows the 24 hours after that. It goes into the data dashboard for the district. At that approximately the same time, the data will also be in EduClimber. So EduClimber and the data dashboard are about at the same time schedule. With luck, we should see that data by Friday, potentially Thursday. I know that the data is cleaned. I think it's being double checked right now, and hopefully we'll get that taken care of in short order. A couple new things that we had going on this year is we had test invalidations. Now, I got an email from NWEA, who is the vendor of MAP, from their CEO saying, essentially, probably wasn't ready for prime time, that there are issues with the test invalidations, and that one of the things that they are working on is retooling that so we can find who has invalid tests, we can find out who is testing too quickly, those kinds of things. So please keep in mind that things are changing. In fact, they have turned off the test invalidation feature for winter. We'll find out more about the spring rollout of that and all the new tools that are going to be available late January, early February. So when we're pretty much done with our winter map testing window, that we'll have more information about the spring and that whole invalidation process. So if you have concerns, please send me an email. I want to hear what your experiences have been. I've got in touch with quite a few people, and I'm just constantly looking for some feedback so I can provide it to the vendor. Likewise, I have not heard a whole lot about text-to-speech this year. Maybe it's been kind of pushed aside by the whole concept of invalidation, but I want to make sure that you also have some feedback on clarity of who gets text-to-speech, what does it do, checking the boxes, et cetera, et cetera. So if there's any questions or concerns about that, please let me know, and I will not only share it with our friends at NWEA, but also make sure that that we do better as we try and improve our whole process for you. Let me back up 1 second here. Finally, I think the last thing I was going to tell you is that we always like to share results with families. And so what we're in the process of doing, we just sent that to printing yesterday. Printing Services is going to be printing the MAP individual student results. So you will get, the principal in your building will get a box with 1 copy of the student results for MAP for this year. Please keep in mind that in the past we've sent 2, one for parents and one for the CUME folder. We are not sending any for the CUME folder at this point. Since all of that information is in IC, we don't want to duplicate, we don't want to use more resources than we have to. So please note that the single copy of the MAP individual student results report that you're going to be getting is designed for you and your staff to share with families when they come in for parent-teacher conference.
Tim, could we get that in Spanish?
We have the back side in Spanish available on the website, but the front side is only available in English, since that is something that is specific to students, and we can't get the entire thing in Spanish, but the translation will be available. I will double check, Sarah and I will double check to make sure that the back side, which is the descriptor of everything on the front, that is also in Spanish. We also have most of the documents for MAP translated into Spanish on our website, so I'll send out that link as well for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Now, I realize that this only pertains to the elementary schools, but there are also some things that are important when we're talking about sharing information with families. The PALS window for grades 1 and 2 has closed, and it's been closed for a little bit of time now. All scores should be uploaded into the software, and the only thing that remains is we have to put that information into IC, but on your end, one of the requirements of the law for screening, the reading readiness screener, is that we share this with families. I'm not sure we've done a really good job of that because, unfortunately, PALS is not something that we can pull the data from in a nice report format at the district level. It has to happen at the school level. The best thing that is out there is we created a how-to document to how to print PALS reports for families. So whether it's the teacher or someone who has school-level access, go in and print each one of those sets for the teachers to be able to share with the families. It's a very straightforward document of how to print that. One of the things that we've done is I've added on the website for PALS what does this mean? So when you take a look at the PALS report, if you're a parent who is not an educator, you might question what some of these things are. And so there is here's how to understand what PALS is saying kind of document on there, on the website. So if you have any questions about either interpreting PALS information for families or how to print the reports, we'll make sure that that's available. Currently, the document that explains different PALS features is in English. I'm working on the translation, but I also know that there is a Spanish PALS, and so it's not exactly the same content. There's some different things in, obviously the alphabet is different, etc. So working on that document, I hope to have that ready in time for parent-teacher conferences as well. All right, moving on. The COGAT screener is coming up. It will be for all students in grades 2 and 5. There are 3 domains. We've been using this particular screener for quite some time. It takes approximately 45 minutes to an hour to do the entire piece. Each one of the domains is approximately 14 or 15 questions long. Takes about 15 minutes to do. Please keep in mind that there are school and classroom header sheets, that when you send that information back to us, all the sheets for scoring, all the information for scoring, that you fill those out. Finally, just want to remind people that sometimes the fifth graders take their answer sheet and put it inside their test book and it gets stuck there. So please make sure that you do a count of how many answer sheets you're expecting and how many that you're sending to us. We would appreciate that. It's a little disconcerting to find student answer sheets a month after we send it in for scoring. So I really want to avoid that. Also, something that this does affect middle schools as well. We are going to be shortly getting information out that'll be this week yet on the APPLE, which is designed, it's a language proficiency assessment designed to see how proficient you are as a person is in a language other than English. So while Access looks at English language proficiency, the APPLE looks at language proficiency in our case, in Spanish. So this is for dual language immersion programs and as well as DBE programs. So I will be in contact with those folks. If you haven't heard from me yet, you will be hearing from me shortly with information about this. It does take several hours to do the entire piece, but the good thing is we're not doing the entire test for any of these grade levels. So there is a portion of the test that each grade level will be taking. New this year, grades 3 and 4. Last year in DLI, we were doing grade 5. We did grade 5. We're adding grades 3 and 4 this year. Next year, we'll be adding grade 6. So just please keep that in mind. This is one way of getting information to parents and staff about what is the progress of a student in learning a second language. As you can see on the screen, grades 3, 5, and 7, you'll be doing one assessment, which is a listening and speaking assessment. So the students will need to have headsets. So that includes not only the headphones, but also the microphone. And grades 4 and 8 will do 2 components, which are the listening and reading component. So they'll need headphones. And then also the writing component. So each one of these takes anywhere, they're untimed, so it takes anywhere between 40 and 60 minutes to do the assessment for each of these. If you have questions about this, I will be getting the sample letters out to everybody in the next 24 hours, and hopefully if you have questions, you'll connect with me. This is ultimately leading to the seal of biliteracy, which the students will receive on their high school diploma. So it's a pretty important assessment for those students and those families. All right, let's continue on and talking about languages. What's new for Access this year in 2018-2019? So first of all, the big news from WEDA is they have a new website. They've completely redesigned it. So things should be more readily accessible, but they also have a new web address. So you can see at the bottom of the screen, it is weda.wisc.edu. The old address of weda.us will still work, at least for this year, but we want to make sure that people start bookmarking this as being the new site. This is the place where if you're going to do professional development and go through the different modules, and become certified, this is the website in which you will do that. We'll talk about certification and the PD in just a few moments. Now, the timeline for all things Access is we've broken it apart into 3 different components. At the top of the section, you can see that it's from today or now through November 2nd. Then we've got another month-long block, and then we've got the actual testing window. So we're going to break this down and go into each one of these. The big piece that's going on right now that we're really hoping that we don't want surprises. We want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with where things are at, but you need to know about the big piece right now is updating IEPs, 504s, etc. in OASIS. We'll talk about that in a moment. Speaking of that, right now is the moment. So It says the deadline is November 2nd, and that is a Friday. That's coming up a week from this Friday, I believe. What needs to happen is, hopefully we can get that done sooner, but by Friday, November 2nd, students should have updated in OASIS what kinds of supports they need, what kinds of accommodations they need for access, as well as for other assessments. This is also the place that we are going to be using the information to identify which students should take the alternate access. So typically, if a student is taking the dynamic learning maps, the DLM, they would also be taking the alternate access. We are going to get you a list, and we'll show you what that looks like in a moment, but it's going to be a list of anticipated students, so who we think should be taking the access test and what kinds of supports that they will have from our perspective. It's kind of this is an early way to make sure that we catch as many students as possible. Changes can be made once the test is in production, when the test window is open, but it really is kind of a pain to do that. So if we can catch as many kids as possible earlier than the test window, it's good all around. Keep in mind that students who are identified as English language learners need to go through this process. We need to actually identify them first. So you will have students who potentially can move in to your building, your school, at any point during the access window. The process is the same. We always do a screener, the WIDA screener first. Regardless if they're new to the US or not, if they're coming from another state, we need to ensure that they are actually English learners. The process has gotten a little bit easier if we make a mistake to remove that from their record, but it's not easy overall. And we don't really want to alienate families by saying your child is an English learner when in fact it's just that they heard some Spanish on television and said a couple words mimicking it. So we need to make sure that this is in place. So from now until the Friday, November 2nd date, here's typically what needs to be going on. Number one is the OASIS piece. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, you need to start thinking about scheduling. How are you going to do this? Where are you going to do the assessment? Who is going to do it? Especially when it comes to students with alternate access. We have multiple models of how that could work in the district, how it has worked. We've got a lot of new staff members, so we need to make sure that everyone understands and is clear about who is going to do what assessment. And finally, since access is technology-based, we need to make sure that you contact your building tech services person, the microtech who supports your building. Let them know when your first scheduled date of testing is. They'll be able to help you with that. And in case there's some issues, they should plan on being around in the building at that time. Typically, we've already been through MAP. We're using the same devices. There shouldn't be any problems, but I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that. Now, November 5th. So the 2nd of November is when we would really like to have things taken care of as far as getting information uploaded into OASIS. However, on the 5th of November, the following Monday, you will get an email that includes a roster of all the students. Actually, it includes a couple things. Here are the two tabs that you will get in this file when you receive them on the 5th of November. The first tab is roster, and we'll take a look at that. The second is IEP accommodations list. So if you take a look at the roster tab, here is what you should expect. You would see on the left-hand side, you'll see the names of all the students who are expected to test the access, to be given and take the access test at your particular school. It also tells you what format. If you're an elementary building, please keep in mind that kindergarten is different, that grades 1, 2, and 3, their writing component is different, but we want to make sure that you see who is expected to test at what level. You'll also see over here on the right their access testing status. So all of these students should be, they will be expected to take the access. You can see in the light blue we have this student has a 504. Now that's the information that we should be getting from OASIS, and you can see that the student right above this is access for ELs with accommodations. Now, the purpose of this page is not for you to go back through your entire list of students and double check to make sure that we've got everybody. This is what's in IC, so we're going to assume that everything is up to date on IC. What we do want is, you can see that there are 2 students here that have in yellow highlight, no accommodations in IEP for access. Either that or they have an open IEP. We're not sure. We know that they are listed as being students who are identified who have needs, students with disabilities. However, nothing is there in OASIS. So this is something that we would really like you to double check on. Talk with the case manager and just say, hey, so Tim we know he has an IEP. Is it open? Is it, did accommodations get removed? I'm not sure. So make sure that we get clarity on that. And this is one of the things that will need to be updated on this roster, this Excel spreadsheet, so that we're aware of the fact that Tim is in fact testing and everybody knows that his IEP was still open at that moment. Let's take a look at page 2, the second tab. On this, again, you'll see beginning on the left, you'll see all the students, which test they're expected to take. So for instance, the students at the top are all expected to take access, the regular access, but here you see in the middle that a student is expected to take the alternate access. You can also see that when students have accommodations, it tells you what specific accommodation is listed in OASIS. Again, this is not for you to go through with a fine-tooth comb and say, is this correct, and then compare OASIS with what we have. As of Friday the 2nd, this is what is in OASIS. So again, it's kind of a double check. You can also use this particular page to help you understand what kinds of locations you're going to need to have students who are, for instance, a student who has frequent breaks or has to have the directions read to them or reread, those kinds of supports, they may need to be in a smaller classroom. If there are any one-to-one, they would need to obviously be in a small group. So you need to you can use this to kind of help yourself set up a schedule and figure out which rooms you're going to be using ahead of time. Any questions about this list, please make sure that you connect with either Sarah Wallner or myself to make sure that you get those questions answered. Also, going on between now and the 2nd of November and kind of continuing on, but just so you're aware of it, professional development. Best practice says that we need to certify every 2 years, recertify. And so I'm asking that if staff members have been certified to give access, as a reminder, make sure that they're aware of this, that they recertify, which means it could be as simple as going in and taking the quiz one more time. Both Sarah and I have recently taken the quiz, and I'm happy to note that A, we passed, and that B, Sarah got a higher score than I did. She got 100, I got 90, sorry. However, please keep in mind that if someone is new to Access, they must be certified prior to giving the test. This process is self-directed. It is on the weda.wisc.edu website. It takes approximately 1.5 to 2 hours to go through the self-paced material, take the quiz, and become certified. You do not need to send me the certificates. that's something that I will be able to go in and see and double check, and we will do that to make sure that everybody is ready when it comes just prior to the December 3rd deadline. We'll talk a little bit about more of that in a minute. Things that are also going on, as a Access coordinator, you should have access now to the WIDA AMS website. You should be able to log in. However, there's not going to be much there that for you to see yet, because on November 1st is when DPI will pull all the students and upload those into WIDA AMS, and you will see that they will be placed in sessions based on their grade level and based on their what level that we know them to already be at. Again, just a reminder that coordinators should contact the building techs to let them know what's up. All right. Whew. Now it's November 3rd. So between the 2nd of November and December 3rd, which is when the window opens, please make sure that everybody gets the professional development completed. We'll be checking just to make sure, because it's really important that we give this test appropriately. During this time also, you'll kind of finish up the scheduling within the building. We will be printing and sending you tickets for each of the sessions. Those of you who have been through Access before, remember that this is ticket driven. So students will be given a ticket by you that has the login information for them, and it goes to the appropriate session. All the sessions are pre-populated, and the tickets will come to you in 4 different colors, since there are 4 different domains. And you'll get each of the domains in a different color, so that should help in coordinating this pile of tickets. Keep in mind that at any moment that there are changes to a student's needs, their supports within the software, etc., that the ticket needs to be redone. So if you have, for instance, I'm a student who has an open IEP and nothing gets put into the system prior to printing these tickets, if the IEP is closed and the accommodation is then decided upon, we can put that into the WIDA AMS and add that, no problem. However, if I use the old ticket, it will give me the old settings. So once there are new settings that have been changed, we need to have a new ticket printed. That we've found is best done at your level, and so there is a document of how to print tickets. So when you have a student who has some settings changed, we'll say, settings are changed, please print their ticket. And you will be expected to print that particular ticket. All right. A couple other things that are going on between the beginning of November and December. It would be a good idea to review some of the questions and what it looks like to do WIDA Access with students, especially those who have never done this before. So if they're new to the country, they arrived after Access last year, they are not familiar with what they're going to be expected to do. And so we'll take a look at a sample test in just a moment, sample question. An important reminder that once you begin testing a domain, it needs to be completed that day. For instance, you may choose to, the first 2 domains are reading and listening. You may choose to do either one in either order first, but if you start reading on one day, you need to finish it on that day. You can pause for lunch if you like. You can come back and get things restarted, but you need to finish reading on a single day. Likewise, you can finish both reading and listening on the same day if you want to. One in the morning, one in the afternoon, however you want to do that. You can do one session on one day, do the next session on the next day. But bottom line is, once you start a domain, it needs to be completed on that next day, or excuse me, on that same day. A reminder, again, about headsets. You should take a look around, make sure that you have enough prior to testing. Okay, speaking of testing, December 3rd, which is I believe it's a Monday, the test window opens. It goes through February 1st. This is the state window. This is not, we have not built in any extra padding so that if you don't get it done by February 1st, that's it. But we need to work really hard to do that. It is required to do listening and reading before you do the other two domains, which are writing and speaking. The reading and listening scores, which are done by computer, are generated very quickly after the student finishes, and then it says, oh, it's this student, Tim. It sets what level the tickets are going to be good for the next two domains. It takes approximately, we tell people that it takes approximately an hour between when you finish the reading and listening, when you get, when everything is all set up, ready to go for the writing and speaking. In reality, we found it's quicker. Doesn't mean you should count on that, but people have reported that it takes approximately 15 to 20 minutes once they've hit done for the listening and reading to get the report available for the writing and speaking. I would count on an hour, just saying. Once the level has been determined by the student's reading and listening score, you can see that we then move into the writing and speaking domains. We strongly urge you to use small groups for speaking, and by small groups, we're suggesting no more than 6 for 2 reasons. Number one is that it is very technology intensive. So this is the most intensive communications process of the whole assessment. You get more than 6 going in one room on one access, wireless access point. It may support it, but the odds are now building against you that you might lose a web connection, an internet connection. The second reason for suggesting small groups is simply the feedback in a room. So you've got, let's say you had 10 students, you now have 10 voices potentially going at once. If you have some student who is a very soft speaker, it actually could, the student voices from around the room could potentially overwhelm their own voice, and that is what is recorded, or nothing is recorded. So it's really in students' best interest to have small groups speaking at once. We have had reports that you don't necessarily have to have a headset, so the headphones and the microphone piece, that you can use the microphone on the Chromebook just as I'm doing right now, and it's worked, but that's for a one-on-one session, not in a small group. Just a reminder also, students are welcome to use their own earbuds if they like. If you want to suggest that, especially some of the older students, they might be ready for that, but they do need to have the headsets with the microphones for the speaking component. At this point, I'm not aware that the earbuds will work well play well with the Chromebooks. All right. Just to give you a heads up on the time, approximately 40 minutes for listening and 35 for reading. These 2 particular domains are not timed. This is the approximate time that DPI and WEDA expect. The only session of the 4 that is actually timed is speaking. They have 30 minutes to complete the speaking component. So please keep that in mind when scheduling that. And let students know, especially if they've never taken Access, that they have a time limit here. The writing and for Part A and for Part B-C, these should not be scheduled together. So what comes out of, I'm going to go back here, what comes out of the listening and reading test, when we set the tiers for writing, please keep in mind that because they take different amounts of time, if you mix them, you'll have writing level A students done way before the writing level BC, potentially causing disruption, potentially not providing a fair and equitable testing environment for those doing sections B or tier BC. So speaking is timed. The writing component needs to be put into different physical locations or tested at different times simply because of the time variation of the expected testing. There is a sample assessment. You can go in, and this is on our website because it's quite a long email or URL, excuse me, but it is live, ready to go right now. When you, this is a sample question, so it will give you a sense for how far you are in the assessment, provide progress for the student. It also has the different tools, universal tools, as well for each of the students. This is the screen that they will get when they log into the practice test. It's very similar to what will appear when you log into the actual test. For those of you who have given the WIDA screener this year, you'll recognize this as well. So I want to just point out a couple things on the bottom where it says in yellow, test demo. This is a series of video clips that you can use to share with students on what to expect as far as the assessment. Then you can also click on the test practice component here to actually get to the practice questions. When they go live on the actual test, it'll say something like test login or begin test below this. So it'll look very similar. And I believe that's pretty much what we have for WIDA Access. That's coming up quickly. We're here to help support you, and if you have questions, if you've never done this before, if you walk away from this webinar saying, I don't get what he was talking about, please don't hesitate to call and email us or somehow get in contact with us. We'll make sure that you are ready and feel more comfortable for the Access test that's coming up. As always, you can get a hold of us through our website. There's documentation there. The letters for instance, the COGAT are there for families in six different languages. You can email either myself or Sarah, or give us each a call. You know, our phone numbers are here for you. So I'm going to just stop sharing the screen right now and double check to make sure if there are any chat questions that we have. I think Sarah's taking care of those. Yes, so I'll go through this. Sarah has posted the backside of the map report that is available in Spanish if you need to print that. Unfortunately, we cannot print map reports mixed. They come to us they come to us in English. We don't have a choice to put that into Spanish. So we provided a resource here. It's also on the website. There is also the family page that is in Spanish as well. It's in the upper right-hand corner of the page. You will see it. They can click Spanish for that. Headphones. We purchased, for my budget several years ago, headphones that everyone said, here's what we need. I filled that order with the understanding that replacing them would be on the school's budget. Now, since that time, we found that one brand in particular provides a replacement guarantee. Koss headphones are the brand. I will share that to the website. I can send those out. What is the particular style and model number of the headset that we're looking at? But we found that if they're broken, you can send those to me. I will send them to the factory and get them replaced. In the meantime, I have a small stockpile of headphones that I can immediately return to you. So it's kind of like I've got some cushion here, so send me Koss headphones only. I'll replace those right away, then I'll get some more from the factory to replace the broken ones. If they're not Koss, unfortunately, I can't replace them. I have no budget to do that. and I do not have the resources to do that. Sarah also pointed out that the tickets for Access will come right after Thanksgiving. I also forgot to tell you about the delivery date for materials for those writing components as well as alternate access. The writing materials will arrive to us on November 30th at Flom Road, and so we'll be ensuring that we get those out to you as soon as possible, but please don't count on writing domain test booklets day one on December 3rd. We'll get them to you as soon as we possibly can, but we don't get them until Friday the 30th, so we can't get them out to anybody sooner than that. Likewise, we can't even order alternate access materials until Friday the 30th of November. So they come pretty quickly. However, we won't get them, so you won't get them until probably midweek of the first week of the assessment. So that's when the alternate access will arrive. Also, let's see, question, what should we do with the non-cost brand headphones? I would recycle them where electronic recycling takes place. I don't know of anybody who will repair them, and even though they were fairly expensive at the time, they do break under wear and tear. So that's what I would suggest. There are, I'm looking at this, are there certified helpers assigned to schools that help administer to the kindergartners like last year? Yes, OMGE is working on who is going to be assigned and what you need. You'll be expecting, I would expect emails from Jen Kluterman regarding how much support that you can expect for proctors to come in. So that continues with like we have had in the past. I think that pretty much sums it up. So if you have any other specific questions, please let Sarah or I know. But at this time, I'm going to stop recording. I'll hang out here for a little bit and open up microphones if you want. But at this time, we're going to stop the recording. This will be posted on the website in the next 24 hours. And I'll send out the link to everyone for that. So thank you very much for your time.